something I wanted to ask you about today. When you're looking at identifying high potentials in a company, often what happens is the high potential kind of group is identified as a certain set of people with a certain set of traits, behaviors, whatever, and it ends up being about 5-10% of the organization who might be identified as kind of the top performers, the most high potential people. But when you use a specific set of traits and criteria to single a very small minority of the company out, that tends to piss everyone else off when they find out that 90% is not identified as high potential, not identified as senior leaders or whatever. So how do you mitigate the effects of that? Or how do you design a program that doesn't kind of single out a few people and then piss off everyone else in the company?
So when we talk about disenchantment, one of the key drivers we found for disenchantment was a sense of perceived inequity. So the idea that employees felt that certain members of the organisation were being treated one way. They were the favourite children, they were the golden children, the Ubermensch of the organisation, and they weren't a part of it. This set of employees, these high potential employees, are potentially seen as getting unfair advantages in terms of promotion opportunities, development opportunities, access to stretch projects that give them huge amounts of experience, that allow them to go on to be these great and fulfilling employees, but that they don't have access to it. It's a very jarring experience for a lot of employees. It fosters a huge amount of disenchantment, a huge sense of injustice that they cannot be and were never allowed to be a part of it. In the book, we talk a lot about how organisations can mitigate this effect. And one of the key ways we find is communication. Organisations that are very clear and open and upfront about what talent looks like for them, how they are measuring it, what types of characteristics, what types of experience they are looking for, and how they are identifying talent. That is one of the most effective ways we've found to mitigate perceived inequity. There have been studies looking at two different sets of employees going through the same experience. It was actually a study looking at huge redundancies being made, where only 10 to 15% of the organisation were being kept due to kind of huge socioeconomic changes. And what they did was they split the employees in two and said, right, we want to see what happens in terms of their perception, in terms of their sense of injustice and wrongdoing in light of what's going on. One set of managers were very open and upfront about it. This is why this is happening. We've kept these people because they have displayed these characteristics. We're very sorry that it couldn't be you. We're very sorry we couldn't tell you beforehand, but unfortunately this is the case. The other set of managers went, sorry, tough luck, pack your boxes, see you later. What they found was the sense of injustice of that first group of employees was so much lower than the second one. They've been communicated with clearly, they've been told the criteria, they understood. They've both gone through the same experience, but the way they were communicated with had a huge impact on how they felt and how they perceived what was going on.
Yeah, and I think you raised a really good point too about making sure that potential is really specifically defined, right? So sometimes potential or high potential is automatically assumed to be leadership potential or a very specific, narrow career trajectory, which it's not really, right? Like there's high potential people all over the organization, whether it's a high potential leader or a high potential technician or specialist, high potential salesperson, and you have different traits and different kind of outcomes associated with those different roles. So instead of having a really narrow definition of potential that maybe only a few people know about and isn't really communicated with everyone, it's better to have really clear definitions and conceptualizations of potential across the organization for different people depending on what their jobs are and what value they're bringing to the company, right?
Absolutely, and it's something you talk about a lot in the high potential book. It's the idea of potential to do what? Not everyone wants to go on to be a member of senior leadership, but they have so much more potential they can give. They could want to be the technical expert in their organisation, the go-to person for a specific job function, for a specific type of analysis or a specific type of manufacturing. It's all about understanding how you can develop and grow your employees. Every employee wants to feel valued, wants to feel that they have purpose, wants to feel that they can strive and develop in their organisation. One of the key ways to maintain engagement. Organisations that build these clear pipelines also seem like they're investing in their employees a lot, and that really fosters that sense of enchantment, really fosters that sense of organisational commitment for employees to their organisation.
Yeah, and if you find that and you identify that in your workplace, there's probably more high potentials than you think.
Absolutely. Cool.
Thanks.